Good evening. Today is Thursday, June the 23rd, 2016. We're looking at the market opening that happened earlier today. As you know, the last few days I started doing videos after the market, not during the market. That doesn't mean that I am not paying attention throughout the entire day. This is 11:22 New York and 8:22 Phoenix time, but this is the opening on the market at 9:30 a.m. So we don't need these clocks. Let's get rid of them. On opening, at $1.76 to the upside. Take a look at the volume compared to the volume yesterday. Almost 3 million to the upside. If you remember, yesterday, the market ended after the setup of this 15. We did a study on this thing. This move made 50% and a little bit more if you had stayed for the continuation. And I talked about just staying on the 5 and then I did a study in VXX as well. Well, if you had been trading this and you executed an exit, you would have been good, because if you stayed longer, you would have gotten hurt, because like I showed you, the opening was $1.76. So you definitely didn't want to stay for that noise. The thing of it is that, like I said, the drop over here was making for a very strong upside pattern. It's interesting that this thing didn't continue. It just stagnated over here, and then this thing just opened to the upside. This is pre-market, and then there's your upside. Take a look at the 60 turns up, the 15, the 5. And on opening, I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, okay, this is now a negative divergence instantaneously on the 15. But what I don't like is the context, because the context is this. This is the closing yesterday, and this is the context on opening. Take a look at that daily, the daily turn. We're reversing the trend. So the daily had been trending down. With this pattern over here, we're reversing the trend. And so that changes everything. And so this pattern over here has too much momentum to the upside. Even the 60 turns up. And if you take a look at the 2 hours pointing up, and even the 4 at this particular point, that's something we're going to see here shortly. So back to the opening at 9:30 here. Then we go to the next interval, 9:35. Take a look at the 1, the 5 explodes to the upside. There's a regression after we topped at almost 210. The 1 minute technically tops, but take a look at the boys on the 5. And I said to myself, in order for me to get into anything, I need to see how the next interval over here on the 15 and even the hourly looks like. So I said, absolutely not. I don't trust this thing, especially since the daily turn. So we established a technical top on the 1, but the poise going up is really strong. Take a look at that 15. It moved up on its own interval a lot. The 5 continues. Another 5-minute interval. Take a look at that 5. The price is pulling back almost 50 cents, 9.55. And on the pullback here, the 60 shrinks. Well, here's the interval. Boom. Take a look at how that 60 grows on the interval, and so does the 15, and even the 5. So this is calling a continuation. Here's the context. That daily up, even the weekly is turning up. There you have a price retest on the 1. The 5-minute is very poised. The 1-minute divergence starts working. Another interval on the 15. 15 moves up. The 5-minute flattens and turns. I thought this could be one of those 1 of 2 things patterns, but I said I don't see the same build-up that we had when we had the retest in here, when we had weakness. I don't have any weakness in here. I have a straight line. And the beginning of an uptrend. Absolutely not. And then if you go take a look at the 2 and 4-hour charts, it's forget it. So we pulled back. The price meanders. Then we pull the technicals of that 5, price retests. At 11 o'clock, take a look at that hourly and the 15. Price continues to the upside. We're now building a 5-minute negative divergence. Over here, I was looking at the 30-minute chart just to see how that pattern looked, but the momentum is too strong. I don't have an indication of a turn in here. So I don't like it, and I said no. And I kept it on the 30 by mistake here for a few intervals. Take a look at the bottom of the hour, the 30-minute moves up. Then I return to the 15 here. Take a look at that 15. We have now a pattern on the 5, and I saw this when it was happening. I said, no, I don't like it. If anything, that's just going to flatten that 15, and we start pulling long. I don't like it. And I said, no, I don't like it, and I'm not going to do anything. Take a look at this. The 1 minute continues. The 5 minute is now pulling long. This thing, like I said, flattens the 15, and then it turns it. Now we're going to go to the 1 o'clock interval. Take a look at that hourly, moves from 43 to 46. Over here, I decide to change the zoom on the 1. Incredibly long. That 5 minute is long. Take a look at how the 1 here builds a pattern to the upside. So that 5 minute is long, which means we're fighting trend. The hourly is pointing up. So now the price goes up on the 1. Have a drop, more of a build-up on the 1. That's now a pretty entrenched upside divergence on the 1 with weakness already printed on the 5. This thing stinks like upside. And I said, this thing is going to go up. 210, 215. The 15 is pulling a little long against what the price is doing. Take a look at that hourly. 250. And then the price goes up. You have a new pattern on the 5. I saw this, a pattern on the 15. I said, too small, too much, nothing. If you take a look at the 2 hour at this point, the 2 hour is parabolic to the upside. So I said, no, I'll show it to you here in a second. So this thing moves the price barely from 210.25 to 209.95. So what is that, 30 cents? Then the price moves up, 350. There's the upside. It just skyrockets. Remember I said the price is going to go up? On that understanding, 210, the price made it to 210.75. It moved 75 cents just like that. Now, when this happened, even at 4 o'clock, I said, I could enter a position on puts over here, maybe the 210s. But I said, no, the upside is too strong. And I just don't like the way this thing looks. Because take a look at that 2 hour and the 4. Remember I was saying the price needs to go up and we're going to create a negative daily divergence. Here it is. It's just that this thing happened with a very lackluster pattern. This was the pattern on the 60 that fueled this whole thing. And so I said on that 15-minute pattern, no, I don't want to stay on this thing in aftermarket. Which brings me to this. I'm going to show you the aftermarket. So the price ended at around 210.83 right here, right? Well, take a look at how the price tracked up all the way to 212, which we don't even have here. All the way, it made it all the way over here. So that made for an extremely entrenched pattern on the 15. I assume the 15 still technically grew up over here. But then the price started collapsing after that. Take a look at how we made it to 212.18 and it dropped to 210.08. So 210.18 would have been $2. It dropped inside of aftermarket over $2. Now, let's say that I had gotten a position here, 210.87. This thing made it to 210.07. So that's an 80-cent differential. Because this thing dropped to 210. And I was saying maybe the 210s, they are not quite eclipsed yet, but we still have the pre-market. And this thing seems to have momentum. I just couldn't bring myself to do anything on this particular pattern. Let's take a look at the 30-minute chart. Wow. Yeah, we introduced a lot of weakness in here. Very interesting, isn't it? Makes me want to take a look at VXX. VXX coming down hardcore. Take a look at how, yeah, this is another indication that the upside couldn't sustain because the weekly over here stayed rather short. So this thing looked like a pullback on trend. So the trend to the downside resumes after we stayed short, and this pattern did the trick over here. But we're forming a pretty interesting daily divergence in there. Take a look at that 2-day chart. All it takes is to time the turn of the 60 over here, which could come furiously fast. So we got to pay attention to the turn over here. There's going to be a pattern that's going to be unequivocal, and it's going to tell us this is starting to be that pattern. So how about Qs? Qs also rallied to the upside towards the end. You can call in the 2 and 4 hour charts, 2 hour poise, 4 hour poise, daily turned off. So this is a pullback on trend. We're short and we're too broken over here, so the turn is not going to be far away. This is already an interesting pattern. How about Russell? Russell also rallied at the end. Extreme poise on that hourly, daily turned off. We can call in the 2 and 4 hour charts to see. See the 2 hour chart on Russell? It almost created a perfect retest. One of those one of two things patterns. One thing is that the trend starts here, and then you have just a pullback on trend, and the other one is the retest to create a perfect divergence. It didn't quite happen, so it was the first thing. Very interesting indeed. Lower time frames on this thing here. Take a look at how the 5 minute was long. You have a pattern of support in here, ending the down cycle of the 5. The 5 turns on this pattern over here. This is one of those one of two things here. The trend to the upside starts here, and it's gone. And the other thing is the possibility of a retest. Here it is. It didn't quite make it all the way down, but it formed a very interesting pattern. So if anything, this gives you the understanding that this is going to change to the upside. How about on the 1 minute chart? This is that pattern. That is it. Then take a look at what happened over here. You have the trend is being established over here, right? Then you have a pullback on trend. We pull long on the 1, short on the 5. This is almost a 5 minute divergence, and then this thing fuels the upside. You know what this takes? You know what this takes? It takes... Because I've been watching this all day, but you know what? I need to take a look at this thing much more closely. Because it was obvious that this thing was going to do the trick. Did we have the same thing on Qs? Yes. See, this pattern comes in over here, backed up by this much. On an aging 5, that's long. Come on. Let's take a look at this pattern over here. This is nothing more than a pullback on trend. This is the one or two things pattern, but the second thing happened. Retest. Boom. Did we get that on Russell? This is the pattern. Wow. Diamonds? Not quite, but I mean, take a look at this. This is an upside divergence on the 1. You know what? I want to bring in a little bit more. Yeah, there you go. This is the pullback on trend. And then this one over here that brings the 5 down a bit. You have the explosion to the upside, which is totally called for on this 15. This understanding here gives you the 179 calls. Take a look at that daily to the upside. Take a look at this pattern here. What if I call a 2-day chart? No, not quite as clean. And we can call the 2 and 4. The 2 and 4 kind of has that pattern there. Extreme direction to the upside. That's pretty much it. That's all I have for today. Take a look at FAS also. Take a look at the daily pointing off. Take a look at the 4, the 2 hour. What the hell? It's pretty interesting, isn't it? Take a look at these monthly, calling the price to the downside. What's the long-term context over here? This is the one of two things pattern. The trend starts here, and divergence is nothing more than a pullback on trend. This thing is getting ready to get slammed. We are going to have a move to the downside of apocalyptic consequences, let me tell you. If we take a look at the losers, VXX is the one that lost the most ground out of everybody. From 1525 to below 1425, which is $1. It dropped more than $1.50. And Micron skyrocketed. Well, take a look at this. Take a look at this. This is a pullback on trend. Take a look at how the weekly is completely poised while the daily pulls back. Take a look at the support coming in on this 60-minute chart is the catalyst that puts this thing into motion. This is one of those patterns. The trend starts here. The daily is lethargic in turning to the upside. You have a pullback. This pullback picks up that daily, and the explosion to the upside happens. This would have been a fantastic trade. Wow. Well, take a look at even the quarterly is diverging to the upside. We have a lot of momentum. The monthly is long. We have the support on the weekly. Take a look at the upside divergence over here. See, this is the pattern that starts the trend. The price meanders. It comes back down here. Take a look at the pullback and continuation on the daily that introduces weakness. That in turn created a pattern on the 60, and that pattern is here. See? Pattern, continuation, upside divergence, ending the reign of that daily. I'm going to bring in a 2 hour to bring cohesion to this pattern because it's a little too wide. I bring in the 2 hour, it becomes very apparent. On the 4 hours, probably not going to look quite as clean as this pattern over here. It really was a 2 hour pattern. See what I mean? So there you have it. This pullback over here on this 15 really is telling you what's going to happen. Experience over here is what's giving me the insight. Take a look at Twitter. Wow. I was just not paying attention to this. Holy shit, talk about perfection in the retest. Take a look at this pattern, Alex. Yeah, this is one of those holy shit patterns. If you take this thing to the 13 over here, okay, you bet. Take a look at this. This 15 over here tells you everything you need to know. Then you have a violent pullback, but this thing continues with great violence to the upside. Oof, take a look at this. Then you have the continuation. Yeah, and at this particular point, had I been trading this, I would have been gone right there. Because this is pretty entrenched, and I know that that 60 is old, so it needs to down cycle. So it down cycles, it creates this pattern, it plays out long, and then take a look at how that 15 creates this noise over here. I call this a grapefruit pattern, and then boom, it explodes to the upside again. Magnificent. All it takes is paying attention to those details. US Steel, a little bit of a pattern here, and take a look at how that pattern carries price to the upside. And I want to see UNG on that pullback over here. Made it past 8 to 7.85, so just 15 cents. It creates this entrenched pattern, and the price ricochets back up. It even flattens the hourly. The upside on the weekly is just too strong. If you were watching my video the other day, because Alex brought this to the table and told me, hey, take a look at this, and I said, yeah, I don't like it very much because the channel regression says no more than 8, and then this is a low price stock. And I showed you in my past video that the options interest was very low and the spread's too high. We're talking a 20-cent spread on the 8 puts on this thing, so you would have had to almost go to in the money's 850 puts. But it did move. And then take a look at this pattern. Obviously, that's not going to work. The 1 minute comes in here, and that ends the drive to the downside. Quick glance at oil. Oil coming back up a little bit, but take a look at the divergence that we are creating over here. This is not healthy. We have a technical top established over here. We are coming back up, but this divergence is not going to go away. Now, if I bring in the 2 and 4, there's certain momentum in here. So the momentum to the upside might carry the price a little higher, but we're going to nevertheless run out of steam. And maybe the technicals on the daily turn off, and we can even cross over here. But this divergence is not going to go away. The weekly is long, and the trend to the downside persists. This is a pullback on trend, and the trend is ending. It's just that we pierce through this because this is a very entrenched upside pattern. But take a look at how we're long, and we're starting to build negative pressure on top of this thing. This upcycle is getting tired. Oil is going to come back down again, and it's going to come back down below 10. Let's see what happens. Quick glance at UUP. The dollar dropping over here. Magnificent pattern on the daily. Wow, the dollar is really hurting right now, which puts the euro FXC to the upside. There's that pattern on the daily. Take a look at this entrenched pattern on the hourly, which goes in sync with what happened on SPY. So there you go. I leave you with that. No need to go elsewhere. We have an interesting move coming up over here, back to VXX. This daily and this 2-day chart are going to release an enormous amount of pressure. It's going to be released, just a matter of having a little patience, waiting the down cycle of this hourly to end. So more momentum to the downside here, which means more momentum to the upside here, even though we have the post-market showing us this. Let's see how this thing plays out. Tomorrow is Friday, and tomorrow a good decisive pattern on an even 5-minute chart with good context can make hundreds of % returns. So we're definitely going to be like eagle eyes on this thing. So I leave you with these thoughts. Tomorrow will be Friday, June the 24th. Until then.